The restaurant door swung open, and Emma froze mid-step. Across the dimly lit room sat a man in a faded flannel shirt with patches on the elbows, nervously adjusting a pair of thick-rimmed glasses. This couldn't be her date. She checked her phone again, table 16. Her heart sank as the hostess led her directly toward him. What had her friends gotten her into? If only she knew that this awkward blind date would change her life forever. Hey there, welcome to True Love Stories. If you're enjoying this tale of unexpected romance and hidden identities, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more heartwarming stories that prove love finds us in the most surprising ways. Now, let's continue Emma's journey. Emma Patterson had sworn off dating after her ex-fiancé left her for her former best friend 6 months ago. At 32, she'd built a respectable career as an elementary school art teacher, pouring her heart into her students rather than risking it on another relationship. But her well-meaning friends had other plans, which is how she found herself reluctantly agreeing to a blind date with a really nice guy they knew. "Hi, I'm Daniel," the man said, standing awkwardly as she approached. His voice was gentle but confident, contradicting his disheveled appearance. "You must be Emma." "Yes, that's me," she replied, trying to mask her disappointment. She'd spent hours getting ready, choosing her favorite blue dress that brought out her eyes, and this guy looked like he'd just finished mowing someone's lawn. Daniel pulled out her chair with surprising grace. "I hope you weren't waiting long. The bus was running late." "The bus?" Emma couldn't hide her surprise. "Who still took the bus to dates in the city?" "Yeah, sold my car last year. Trying to reduce my carbon footprint," he explained with a shrug and a smile that momentarily distracted her from his worn sweater. What Emma didn't know was that Daniel Green was actually Daniel Greenfield, the reclusive founder and CEO of Ecotech Innovations, a billion-dollar green technology company that had revolutionized sustainable energy solutions across 3 continents. After watching too many relationships disintegrate once women discovered his wealth, he'd created this alternate persona to find someone who would love him for himself, not his bank account. Their conversation flowed surprisingly easily. Daniel asked thoughtful questions about her teaching career, listening intently as she described her passion for introducing art to children from underprivileged backgrounds. "That's incredible work," he said, his eyes lighting up. "Creating opportunities for self-expression in young minds, that's how real change happens." Emma found herself warming to him despite his appearance. There was something genuine about the way he spoke, how he maintained eye contact when she talked, never glancing at his phone or looking around the restaurant for someone more interesting. When the bill came, Daniel reached for it immediately, but Emma insisted on splitting it. She noticed him counting out cash carefully, even checking the prices again before calculating the tip. "Sorry," he said, catching her watching him. "I'm on a pretty tight budget these days." Emma felt a pang of sympathy mixed with respect. At least he was honest about his situation. As they left the restaurant, rain began pouring down unexpectedly. Emma opened her umbrella, but Daniel had none. "Share mine," she offered, moving closer to him. "Thanks," he said, ducking under the umbrella, their shoulders touching. "Would you like me to walk you to your car?" "That would be nice," she replied, surprised by how comfortable she felt beside him. They reached her modest sedan, and an awkward silence fell between them. "I had a really nice time tonight," Daniel said finally. "Me too," Emma admitted, surprising herself with her sincerity. "Would it be okay if I called you sometime? Maybe we could go for coffee?" "My treat next time, I promise." Emma hesitated only briefly before nodding. "I'd like that." What followed were weeks of simple, meaningful dates. They walked through parks, visited free museum days, and had picnics with homemade sandwiches. Daniel never tried to impress her with material things, but rather with his attention, his kindness, and his genuine interest in her life. Emma found herself falling for this humble man who seemed to find joy in the simplest pleasures. He volunteered at a local community garden on weekends and taught coding classes to underprivileged teens. When she joined him one Saturday, she watched in awe as he patiently explained complex concepts to eager young minds. "Where did you learn to code like that?" she asked afterward. "Self-taught, mostly," he replied vaguely. "I've always been interested in technology and how it can solve problems." Meanwhile, Emma's friends were concerned. Jessica, who had set them up, was particularly worried. "I thought he had a decent job," Jessica said during their weekly coffee meetup. "Mark just said he was a nice guy who worked with computers. I didn't realize he was struggling financially." "He's not struggling," Emma defended. "He's just careful with money. And there's more to life than fancy restaurants and expensive gifts." "But don't you want someone who can provide stability? Remember what happened with Scott?" Emma winced at the mention of her ex. Scott had been charming and ambitious but ultimately unreliable, leaving her with emotional scars and trust issues. "Daniel is nothing like Scott," Emma insisted. "He's the most reliable person I've ever met." What Emma didn't know was that Daniel was wrestling with his own dilemma. Each day that passed made him fall deeper in love with her genuine spirit, her passion for teaching, and her kindness. But each day also made his deception weigh heavier on his conscience. 3 months into their relationship, they were walking hand in hand through the city when a sleek black car pulled up beside them. The window rolled down to reveal a woman in a sharp business suit. "Mr. Greenfield. Thank goodness I found you. The Tokyo investors have moved up the meeting. We need you at headquarters immediately." Daniel's face paled as Emma turned to him in confusion. "I think you have the wrong person," he said firmly to the woman, who looked bewildered. "But sir." "Please, I'm not who you think I am," Daniel insisted, pulling Emma away quickly. "What was that about?" Emma asked, noticing how tense he had become. "Just a case of mistaken identity," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. Something about the incident kept nagging at her. She did what anyone would do in the digital age, she searched online for Daniel Greenfield. What she found shocked her to her core. There he was, in a crisp suit and without glasses, on the cover of Business Innovator magazine. Daniel Greenfield, the eco-billionaire changing how we think about sustainable energy. Emma felt her world tilt. The article detailed his rise from a college dropout with a brilliant idea to the founder of a company valued at over $3 billion. It mentioned his notorious privacy, his refusal to flaunt his wealth, and his substantial anonymous donations to educational programs for underprivileged children. Tears welled in her eyes as conflicting emotions battled within her. Why had he lied? Was anything between them real? Had she been some kind of experiment or entertainment for a bored rich man? The next day, she asked to meet at their favorite park bench. Daniel arrived with a small bouquet of wildflowers he'd picked himself, but his smile faded when he saw her expression. "Is everything okay?" he asked. "I don't know, Daniel. Or should I call you Mr. Greenfield?" Emma watched as the color drained from his face. "Emma, I can explain." "Explain what?" "That our entire relationship is based on a lie. That you've been pretending to be someone you're not for months." Her voice cracked with emotion. Daniel sat heavily on the bench. "The person you know is the real me, Emma. The only thing I lied about was my last name and my financial situation." "Only?" Emma's voice rose. "You let me pay for meals when you could have bought the entire restaurant. You made me believe you were struggling, taking the bus, counting pennies. Because the last 3 women I dated only wanted my money," Daniel interrupted, his own eyes glistening. "The woman before that sold our private conversations to a tabloid. The one before her introduced me to her parents as her ticket out of debt." He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "When we met, I just wanted someone to see me, not my bank account, not my company, just me. And you did. You saw me in a way no one has in years." Emma stood, pacing in front of the bench. But you didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth. I was going to tell you, Daniel insisted. I've been trying to figure out how. I know it's been too long, and I have no excuse except that I was afraid of losing you. Well, congratulations, Emma said bitterly. Your fear became a self-fulfilling prophecy. She walked away, leaving Daniel on the bench with the wildflowers wilting in his hand. The following weeks were miserable for both of them. Emma threw herself into her work, staying late to develop new art programs for her students. One evening, as she was leaving school, she found Jessica waiting for her. You need to see this, Jessica said, handing her a tablet open to a news article. The headline read, Ecotech CEO donates $50 million to inner-city arts education. The article detailed how Daniel Greenfield had established a foundation to bring arts education to underfunded schools across the country, with a special focus on the district where Emma taught. He's trying to buy me back, Emma said flatly, handing the tablet back. Is he? Jessica challenged. Because I did some digging. He's been working on this initiative for months, long before you found out who he was. And he specifically requested that his name be kept out of it until the legal details were finalized. Emma felt her certainty waver. How do you know this? Because I called the foundation directly and spoke to his assistant. She said he was inspired by a passionate art teacher who believed every child deserves creative outlets regardless of their circumstances. Jessica gave her a meaningful look. Sound familiar? That night, Emma couldn't sleep again, but for different reasons. She remembered all the questions Daniel had asked about her teaching, how he'd listened intently to her dreams of expanding arts access in underfunded schools. Had he been planning this all along? The next morning, she received a simple text, I respect your decision and won't bother you again. But if you're willing, I'd like to explain in person. Not to win you back, I know I've broken your trust, but because you deserve the whole truth. Against her better judgment, Emma agreed to meet at the community garden where they'd volunteered together. Daniel was already there when she arrived, kneeling in the dirt, helping a group of children plant tomato seedlings. He wore the same worn flannel shirt from their first date, and his hands were covered in soil. This was the man she'd fallen in love with, regardless of his bank account. When he saw her, he quickly finished his instructions to the children and walked over, wiping his hands nervously on his jeans. Thank you for coming, he said simply. I saw the news about the Arts Foundation, Emma said, getting straight to the point. Daniel nodded. I should have told you I was working on it. I wanted it to be established before mentioning it, so you wouldn't think it was just talk. Why did you do it? Because you made me see how important it is. The way your eyes light up when you talk about a child discovering they can create something beautiful, it changed how I think about meaningful impact. He paused. It had nothing to do with trying to impress you or win you back. It was about doing something that matters. Emma studied his face, searching for any sign of manipulation or deception. She found none. The night we met, Daniel continued, I had just come from a charity gala where people donated thousands just to be seen donating. No one cared about the cause. Then I met you, someone who gives everything to her students without expecting recognition or reward. He looked down. I wanted to be worthy of someone like that. By pretending to be poor? Emma challenged. By being the person I actually am beneath all the trappings of success, Daniel corrected. The person who still remembers growing up with nothing, who values connection over consumption, who wants to make a difference rather than just make money. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a worn leather wallet. From it, he extracted a small, folded piece of paper and handed it to her. Emma unfolded it to find a child's drawing, a stick figure with a big smile, surrounded by colorful swirls. My first grade teacher, Mrs. Abernathy, gave me that, Daniel explained. It was the only time in my childhood someone told me I was good at something. My parents were always working, we were always struggling, and school was hard for me. But art class was different. I could express things I couldn't say. His voice grew softer. That drawing kept me going through some really dark times. When I heard you talk about your students, I realized you're creating those moments for children every day. That's worth more than anything I've ever done. Emma felt tears welling in her eyes. Why didn't you just tell me this from the beginning? Because people change when they know you have money, Daniel said simply. They stop seeing you and start seeing what you can do for them. I needed, someone who would see me for me. I understand why you did it, Emma said after a long moment. But relationships need trust to survive. You didn't trust me enough to show me all of who you are. You're right, Daniel acknowledged. And I'm sorry. Truly sorry. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that what we had was real for me. The most real thing I've experienced in years. As they stood there in the community garden, surrounded by growing things and the sounds of children's laughter, Emma realized something important. The man she had fallen in love with, the kind, thoughtful, passionate person who listened to her dreams and shared her values, was standing right in front of her. His bank account hadn't changed who he was at his core. I need time, she said finally. This is a lot to process. Daniel nodded, respecting her boundaries. Take all the time you need. Whatever you decide, the foundation will continue its work. Your students will have the resources they deserve. In the weeks that followed, Emma watched as the Arts Foundation began its work in her school district. New supplies arrived, visiting artists conducted workshops, and her students blossomed with these new opportunities. Not once did Daniel try to use these developments to win her back or take credit publicly. One afternoon, as Emma was helping a particularly withdrawn student named Lily find her confidence through painting, the little girl looked up at her with wide eyes. Miss Patterson, is it true that a prince gave us all these new art things? Emma smiled. Not a prince, Lily. Just someone who believes in the power of art, like I do. He must be magic then, Lily declared, returning to her colorful creation. Looking at the joy on her student's face, Emma realized something important. People were complex, with layers and contradictions. Daniel had made a mistake in not trusting her with his truth, but his intentions had been born of past hurt and genuine desire for authentic connection, something she understood all too well after her own heartbreak. That evening, she found herself driving to the address she'd discovered in her internet search months ago. It wasn't the massive mansion she'd expected, but a modest craftsman house in a quiet neighborhood. She sat in her car for several minutes, gathering her courage before approaching the door. Daniel answered, clearly surprised to see her. He was in sweatpants and a t-shirt, hair rumpled as if he'd been working late. Emma, he breathed, as if saying her name was both a question and a prayer. I've been thinking, she said, about trust and honesty and second chances. Daniel stood silently, afraid to hope. I'm still hurt that you didn't trust me with the truth, Emma continued. But I understand why. And I realize that the person I fell in love with is real, regardless of his last name or bank account. The person who fell in love with you is real too, Daniel said softly. Every feeling, every moment we shared was genuine. Emma took a deep breath. I'm willing to try again, but with complete honesty this time. No more secrets, no more hidden identities. No more secrets, Daniel agreed, his eyes shining with unshed tears. Just us, figuring it out together. He hesitated before adding, would you like to come in? The real me has a pretty ordinary house and makes terrible coffee, but I'd love to show you around. Emma smiled, taking his outstretched hand. I'd like that. As she stepped inside, Emma realized that true wealth wasn't measured in bank accounts or business empires. It was found in authentic connections, in being seen and accepted for who you truly are, flaws and all. Daniel had learned that his money couldn't buy genuine love, and Emma had learned that looking beyond appearances could lead to unexpected treasures. 1 year later, Daniel and Emma stood together at the opening of the first dedicated arts center in Emma's school district. Children rushed around them, excitedly exploring the